basic idea between von Neumann and Morgenstern's, behind von Neumann and Morgenstern's utility theory, was the idea that somehow we can quantify preferences, interval scales for preferences, based on the willingness to take risks to get those particular outcomes. Now, this idea was not novel to von Neumann and Morgenstern. It had actually been anticipated by a young Cambridge mathematician-philosopher, Frank Ramsey, some 20 years before, in the 1920s, in a paper called Truth and Probability. Ramsey, unfortunately, met an early death in his early 20s, falling off a mountain in Europe as part of a mountain climbing expedition. His idea was rediscovered by von Neumann and Morgenstern in their famous book. And again, the idea is, how willing are you to take a risk to get particular outcomes? So here's how you construct the utility scale on the von Neumann-Morgenstern theory. You start off by listing all possible outcomes of an action. And then you rank those outcomes on a preference scale, a preference order. Most preferred outcome at the top, least preferred outcome at the bottom, and all the intermediate outcomes ranked according to how you prefer them to one another. Then you assign a value of 1 to your most preferred outcome on the scale and a value of 0 to your least preferred outcome. Now, that choice in some sense was arbitrary, but as you'll notice, it exactly matches the upper and lower bounds of a probability statement. That's why they chose those particular outcomes. Then, for any intermediate outcome in your scale, the next thing you ask yourself is this: when would I be indifferent, absolutely indifferent, between getting that intermediate outcome with certainty and getting in a gamble, a lottery, that will give me some probability of getting my most preferred outcome on the scale, and 1 minus that probability of getting my least preferred outcome on the scale? And whenever I reach a probability number on most and least preferred outcomes on the scale, and I'm indifferent between getting in that gamble and getting my intermediate outcome with certainty, that probability number I assign to getting my most preferred outcome is the utility number between 1 and 0 I assign to that intermediate outcome. And I do that for all my intermediate outcomes, and eventually I will have a scale that will reflect not only the preferences I have for these outcomes, but will have them ranked such that the interval between the utility value assigned to my most preferred item, 1, my least preferred item, 0, and all those intermediate assignments will reflect the basic interval by which I prefer one item to another on this particular list. All of those items will be between 0 and 1, and then